You know how we do around these parts, man. This is a cipher. We bring true MCs, true producers, true creatives in the cipher. And in a cipher, we don't introduce anybody. MCs got to introduce themselves. Sister,
Oh, is that what it is?
that's what it is.
Oh, okay.
Them the rules.
I'm not used to that.
I'll make it real.
I'm a queen. I'm usually introduced.
Queen, I'm gonna make it real easy for you, and I got a proper introduction afterwards. But I want the people at home to know that first and foremost, you built yourself up from the ground up. You are a true MC. Sister, I got three questions for all my guests: who you is, where you from, and what you rep. Word player.
Definitely the Queen Herawin of the Juggaknots. Indeed. Originally from the X, New York. I've been in Westchester for years though. And what do I rep? Hip hop culture.
All right.
Yeah.
We are here with Queen Herawin of the Juggaknots. Salute, Queen. Thank you so very much for joining us in WVCC Radio.
Thank you for having me. Yeah.
My name is H2. I'm your humble host. We are from Miami. We have been bumping your music like crack addicts since the late 90s, right? Since the Ruckus wave came out, since Fat Beats put it out. I've been a Queen Herawin fan since my early 20s and stuff. So I salute you, sister, for still putting out fantastic music. I've been following everything that you and Breeze dropped through the years. And it's an honor for me today to be able to present you to my audience in South Florida and worldwide.
Yeah, shout out to Florida for sure. I got fam out there too. Much love. I appreciate that.
I was about to show the video with you and our sister Ty Phoenix and Star that was shot out here in Miami.
Yes, we were out. We were in Florida for sure. Absolutely, we was in Miami for that. Yeah,
I was seeing the first time I played. I interviewed her and I played the video. I'm here like, oh shit, Heroin's on this joint, and I'm here seeing the background. I'm here like, that don't look like New York. that actually looks like SoFlo there, yo. That looks like that's Wynwood, yo.
Right, exactly. That's exactly where we were. It was great. We had a good time. We had a real good time.
You guys look like you had fun out there. It's funny. I was about to play the beginning of it. At the beginning of they're like, "Yo, where the fuck is Heroin, yo?" And so they're like, "Yo, you should get a skip out." Yo, Heroin, I want to thank you for. I know it's mad late. I know that you are.
Past my bedtime.
Yo, you are a hardworking woman, an established mom, and the fact that you're taking this time with us, man, we're honored. Let's get to it. I've prepared some questions.
Indeed.
I've been doing my research, and you have done some fantastic interviews as of late. For all my peoples out there, check out the Uncle E and
shout out to Uncle E.
Yeah, man, and Surreal. They did a fantastic interview with Queen Heroin. I'm trying not to touch the same points and stuff, and just give my listeners something and just expand your online footprint, promotion of everything that you got working right now.
Cool.
We do want to start from the beginning because we all have humble roots. Tell the people at home about where I heard little traces in the other interviews of a Caribbean accent. I know you always say that you guys are born and raised in the Bronx, but is there a Caribbean background there?
Oh yeah, absolutely. My mom is Jamaican.
Okay.
From Kingston, and my dad is Trinidadian.
Okay.
Yeah, there's definitely Caribbean on both sides.
There you go, man. Salute to all the Caribbean, man. We got to stand up.
Yeah, the whole Caribbean, absolutely. So yeah, that's a definite. You heard correctly.
Yeah. I was here. I picked up little hints of the patois. They're like, oh, she tries to slide it through. Yeah. And you got the hard New York accent, but the Jamaican accent is.
Yeah, it popped you.
Growing up you're the only sister of three brothers?
Yes. Yep.
So
3 brothers.
3 older brothers?
3 older brothers. So all older.
Before we get into what it's like to break your teeth, freaking battling at home against Breeze Brewing growing up, right? Yeah, let's talk about just what it was like for you battling just for a piece of chicken, man, just for attention and stuff. Just how was it for you growing up in a household with 3 other boys and the family dynamic, man?
Yeah, that's a good question. I think that it wasn't so much battling for a piece of chicken. I think that being the only girl, being the youngest, there was a sense of protection from the very beginning. And so instead of battling, it was more provision. It was more making sure that I was good and providing for me. They're amazing brothers, excellent brothers, all three of them. And so, there's a real love and sense of protectiveness with them, chivalry up until even this day. My
Mm,
brothers opened the door for me, getting in the car, opening, getting coming into the crib. There's the level of respect and love, and protection that's been there from the very beginning, up until now. So it was never really so much fighting for that. I think, if anything, being the only woman, it was more trying to fight for a voice, for myself, which is why music is a beautiful thing. It, gave me a space to really, in honing my own voice through hip hop and my creativity. That's probably more so where the fight was. And it was more of a personal fight, just wanting to stand out, between being the youngest and being the older girl, and having that sense of identity within a unit as strong as that, especially with all that masculinity, making sure that I was seen and heard too. Was more That was more the fight.
bomb. You grew up with one of hip hop's most prolific MC,
I
Breeze.
agree.
Your brother Breeze Bruin is in a class all of his own.
Indeed, I
There,
agree.
there's nobody who touches his penmanship. I mean, and it's
Thank
and it's just in his own lane. Um,
you.
what was it? And I didn't know. Um, I came to find out about your brother Slim, um,
Mhm.
when Use Your Illusions album came out. I'm like, okay,
Oh, the
that
youth
yeah,
confusion.
the Use Your Confusion album came out,
Yeah.
and I was reading through the line of notes. I'm like, oh man, that's Buddy Slim from the Blue Skies album. Okay, oh,
Yes.
so they're brothers. Okay, bomb. And then I started unpacking and stuff, but I didn't know he produced the whole album, and I didn't
Oh,
know he was
yeah.
a producer in the family early. Uh,
He's a beast. He was the first one. He's the one who really, set the tone just for everything. He's older, a little slightly older than Breeze. And so he really planted the seed, for what really came after. I mean, obviously, all of us being in that environment, being from the Bronx, being from the Mecca of hip hop in that regard, how could you not take that on? It was just a part of your lifestyle and culture. But with that being said, I mean, he definitely was out DJing, rhyming, and then got into production as well. And he had a major name for what he was doing, and, create things he was creating, just the forefront. He really laid down that foundation that would soon follow by all of us. So, and being the eldest, he was able to be out in the streets, and
Word.
kind of be involved in what was going on just in the culture outside of the home, which is very, very different. And then, of course, he brought that home, just what he was experiencing, what he was learning, his inspiration, his love. So, that permeated throughout the crib, throughout the house, and it just, you took that on. But yeah, he's just as prolific, as far as I'm concerned. It's just, he had a different vein. His focus was more production, and anyone who is a fan of that Clear Blue Skies album understands the balance and the relationship between the lyricism with Breeze and the production with Slim. And it wouldn't be what it is as a holistic project hadn't it been for the combination of both geniuses. So yeah.
Yeah, I never. I mean, I owned the album. I put so many of my people onto it. I never knew that that Buddy Slim was the producer
Mhm.
behind it and stuff. I was like, yo,
Yeah,
who was making their beats back then?
for sure.
Fantastic. What was it like for you as a young budding MC and for Breeze, uh, growing up with the beats right there, building in your room, right,
Yeah,
and your older
yeah.
brother instead of yo knuckle up, we go box, nah, yo sharpen your, let's spar,
Well, it
sharpen
was
your
still Knuckle Up. It was just Knuckle Up, musically. And shout out to Sugar Shadow too, who was also involved, in some aspects of that first album and the production, particularly percussion wise, drum stuff. So, um, and some others who were involved as well. But yeah, I mean, it's a very unique situation to be able to have that, in the home. I mean, I remember vividly seeing the creation of those songs being made, the beats, hearing Breeze, seeing the notebooks. Um, it's a different experience when you're seeing it that intimately, that close up. But it's also a very inspirational process when you see that, and then you end up, for me, seeing them go into the studio, record, seeing that become an actual album, hearing it on the radio. Shout out to Bob and Stretch, you know what I mean? So it's like seeing the process from an interior perspective, and then seeing it come from the house, and then actually go outside into the
budding
world
and
of other people.
word.
Yeah, it's a very inspiring process. So yeah, seeing it firsthand in that way, it just makes it sacred. It was a sacred experience, and I think, it's even more sacred now, realizing what was really happening then. I think, sometimes when things are right there, you can take it for granted, and not realize the magnitude of what's really happening until there's a sense of distance and things are a bit removed. And then you're like, oh, wow, that's what that was. Man, that was special,
Yeah,
understanding it on a higher level
yeah.
later on.
I don't know if you know that you glow. I don't know if I don't know. Do
It's the
people?
light. It's
Yeah,
the light in
no,
the
no,
background.
no. That's not even what I'm talking about. Do radioactive people know that they're radioactive? Do they feel it on themselves? What I mean, the level of differentness that you guys bring to it, right?
Mm,
With pen,
mm,
both of y'all pen, right? And you deliver, and that's
mm,
why I could see where that came from, because
mm.
that's the soup that you're building in, and that those are your sparring partners, and that you the cats that you're trying to outdo. Cats like the
Right.
Indelibles, right, are your sparring partners, and that's why when we first heard you, we were like, oh yeah, this doesn't
Mm-hmm.
sound like this doesn't
Yeah.
sound like freaking Lauryn Hill trying to freaking be part of the Fugees and being a cute freaking female rapper. So no,
I
this
think
is
she's one of the
no,
illest
Lauren definitely is freaking fantastic. But you know what I'm saying? At that time, there was that Lauren, that Fuji's Diggable Planets wave. Everybody was trying to ride that 2MC and a female MC wave.
Mm.
But when you guys came out, man, and you spitting, that was on some. Oh no, this girl is as underground and
Well, yeah, I
as
think that it
nasty
was
as all
just
of
a
us.
different grit. I think
Or
that there was a different grit. My brothers years ago, they were also on, a major label for a little while. And I think that that relationship didn't last because of the grit, because it came down to some creative differences. Um, and so, in connection to what you're saying, I love Ladybug. I love Lauren. I think that there was a commercial aspect to what they were doing. And when I say that them, I don't mean the women, I mean
no,
group wise. Because at that point, hip hop was definitely becoming, it was being seen as something that was lucrative. It wasn't just about the craft, it was about the fact that it could generate money. Whereas a lot of what you were hearing on a more underground level, and Lord knows, sometimes in retrospect, you're like, you wish that there was that sense of lucrativeness associated with what we were doing. We were really just in the trenches doing what we did out of the pure love for it. And again, it's not to say that they weren't, but when you attach that sense of label mates and major labels, there's a consciousness of this has got to produce some money. So whether that's in the songs that are put out, whether that's how things are being portrayed and displayed, I look back at how Lauren looked and Ladybug looked, and although they had, and just the groups in general, they had a certain style and look. You look back at old videos of
mm,
me, I was just focused on rhymes. I
right.
wasn't necessarily focused on the aesthetics all the time and looking a certain way. It was more sounding a certain way, performing a certain way, presenting a certain way. And it's with the label, packaging is a must. So, I think it comes back to the grit and the rawness of not necessarily having to worry or think about all those aspects. And that's bittersweet, you know what I mean? Because those groups, they produced a great deal and reached a
Oh
lot
yeah.
more people than we did at the time. But those who know what we did know what we did. And there's a definite respect for what Juggaknots did at that time. And some people still, acknowledge it for what it is, which was authentic hip hop, and it still is.
And that's more than anything. Why? Because you guys have kept that authentic. for those. I mean, for decades.
Yeah,
There,
yeah,
there's
easily.
there's our heroes in the hip hop, like the Aesop Rocks, like the LP, right, that have just kept it consistently. Oh, I don't care, and have made their success and have by their name,
That's true
just like
too. Yeah,
just like the Juggernauts, and that's why we can
indeed.
tip our hats and yo, whenever Heroin puts out something, that shit is raw, right?
I appreciate
Because you
that.
don't come,
Yeah.
you don't, and you've already passed that bridge of oh I want to make it. You found the way of making your life, of making your career, right, and you're still in a comfortable make your music art.
That's
And
true.
we're here for that.
I appreciate it. I'm excited about the new stuff. Yeah.
Oh, we're gonna talk about it, sister. I
Mhm.
wanted to touch real quick. 'Cause
Yeah, of course.
talked about the crew that you were. I heard you saying in other interviews that you didn't come out too much on Clear Blue Skies, and I'll tell you, I'll never forget being at Specs and I see the Juggaknots CD. I'm like, finally they dropped an album. I'm here like, yo, I
Yeah,
can't with all the singles and stuff. I need a full album and stuff. I'm like, Juggaknots, I take it home, and you're only like on 2 cuts, and I'm here like, yo,
Mhm.
I felt mad cheated because I didn't know,
That's
and that's the whole thing. You're down in Miami, you over in another state, you're hearing these leakings and stuff. You're like, yo, and you're making this whole yo the picture of Indelible MCs on the staircase that's on the Lyricist Lounge fold out and stuff.
Mhm.
Yo, just because of that picture, I pictured you guys rolling around slapping cats' heads off and stuff, just armied up. Yo, it was just so grimy, and I'm like, I want to hear everything they put out. When so
Mhm.
getting the CD and not having you on it, except for the 2 tracks which we just played,
Mhm.
um,
Good.
the solo joint, your one verse on it, which what all the stuff. The
Projection. Yeah.
projections, I'm super whack with names. Sorry,
No,
sister.
no, it's all good. It's all good.
And then we just ended with the joint with you guys.
Oh, who makes a high?
Yeah,
Yeah,
who makes it out with the Dodger and you that must be a verse that I've shown people over and over again. Like
that's
this is
nice.
a
I
perfect
appreciate it.
16 right here. Bomb.
It's one
Um,
of my favorites. Yeah.
fantastic work. But you say that you didn't come out on that album on the first sign to Atlantic because you weren't ready yet, polished as you needed to be with the riddens on stage professionally. Um, where would you say where you got put down the bomb and started
Yeah.
rolling with the
So they were actually on Electra, and as far as feeling like there was a sense of real synergy, I think that that happened around the Lyricist Lounge project. And again, it goes back to the original question about my brothers and where I was in sequence or where I am in sequence with them age wise. And I was just very young, you know, when that first album came out, I had just maybe started writing a couple of years in, just a few. Um, my brothers were reluctant to have me, you know, be out and about between shows and studio because it's just a different life. It's a different world. You know, you're out super late. You're in the street. You're in clubs, and I was just too young. I was really too young, and so by the time, but I was still working. You know, I was still writing. I was sharpening my craft, and sharpening. You know, trying to get myself ready. Um, and I can't say that it was trying to get myself ready necessarily for that. It was just more feeling ready within my own body, my own self as an MC, and feeling like I was sharp enough to do whatever, whether that was rock with Juggaknots and my brothers. I was also affiliated with the group Gypsy. Shout out to Gypsies.
mm,
I was just working on honing my craft and being my best self and developing this love that I had, um, and what was feeling natural to me to become an MC. And so that was really more my focal point. But once I was about 16, it was just time, you know. So like Lyricist Lounge, I was like 16, 17, you know, when we did that or when I did that. And at that stage it was like, look, she's good, you know, she's we had shows that were starting to happen. I was in between, like about to go to college. I was in between my high school year of high school, my senior year of high school and my first year of college. And so it was the perfect opportunity to be like, all right, we're gonna start pulling it in. And there was a seriousness that I think, my brothers saw and people saw, like, yo, she's not to be messed with. She's serious. And I oftentimes when I talk about music and what I have contributed, there's still so much more to do and contribute, but people always go back to Lyricist Lounge. So that was really, I think, that transitional stage in going from writing and working on it to really performing and developing into a serious artist who was about it, who was ready to enter into that realm in a real way. Yeah.
Your verse on Wait, just you opening up that verse, songs phenomenal. I tripped out when I heard the little. It was a little smidgen of the story you gave about freaking you
Mm.
getting in trouble one of your teaching gigs because some student kept coming by and saying, "Yo,
Oh
yo,
yeah,
spit that verse for me. Spit that verse for
that's
you
real.
guys."
It's a real story. It's a real story. Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah, yeah, for sure.
fire verse. Can you remember any time being in a cipher and some dude got in your face, a guy freaking butthurt, could you freaking tore his skin off, and your brother's having to freaking yoke him up or step in the way, freaking.
Oh nah, that never happened. That never happened. There was one time in a club that almost happened, but it wasn't about lyricism. It was just a dude like, oh, she's pretty and trying to like be. He was
Disrespect.
ODing. Yeah, yeah, yeah. But I want. We were in the city, we were in Manhattan, but nah. As far as the lyrical part goes, no, because there was a definite sense of respect in any cipher that I was in, whether it was with my brothers or by myself or with gypsies. And, I was actually talking about this yesterday. Shout out to the Universal Hip Hop Museum. There's an affiliation, a relationship there as well. Shout out to Martha Diaz and shout out to Shy Rock, Paradise, Pete Nice. Like there's this workshop that we were doing with some students,
Okay.
and Shy Rock was just into sharing her story and talking about how when she started it was just about rhyming. And yeah, there was obviously a distinction. She was a woman or a young girl at the time or getting a little bit older, and it was predominantly men, but there was a respect for the craft. And it wasn't so much about, okay, well, she's a woman. She was eating up the stage, she was killing the mic. And at the end of the day, that's really what it should be about. And I think in the ciphers, yeah, I mean, I'm sure there was dudes who caught feelings. There was dudes who's like, oh, as which happens anyway. That's
Anyways,
the whole
yeah,
thing
no
in the
matter what the
cipher.
gender, exactly.
Yeah, if you spit a fire verse, people are gonna react in a way that is like, damn, because you coming with it
Word.
lyrically. And so I think especially in a cipher, it doesn't get more raw, authentic, and people are listening. Like in a cipher, they're listening to what you're saying. So if you trash, you trash. If you got bars, you got bars. And if you have bars, you're going to be respected. I think what probably has happened is that there have been instances where maybe dudes didn't anticipate
Dissipate.
it being as real and like talented as it was, and understanding like, yo, when she steps up in here, it's not about he, she, they. It's about it. It's about what she's saying, and or rather, what's being said, and a respect to the culture, a respect for the craft, and a sense of real lyricism. And I think that happens mostly in a cipher, where all those other things are kind of, you may initially come in and they see, okay,
It's
the
a girl
appearance
rapping.
of
Yeah,
a
yeah.
woman,
Like
but
like right now, you're
it,
putting me there. I'm in the
it leads.
cipher. Yo, I'm in the cipher,
Yeah,
and if a girl steps in to rhyme, I'm automatically gonna be like, oh, let's see what sister got. And I
yeah.
can't imagine it being Queen Heroin that starts spitting. I'm there like, oh, hold on, what the hell?
Yeah, at that point it
Yeah,
gets real. At that
yes,
point, the level of competitiveness that someone has, just because it's like, oh, you spitting like that, oh shoot, let me pull out my hardest verse. At that point, gender has gone out the window if it entered the cipher. If it entered, at that point, it's gone. It's about, oh, word, you trying to make me look away because them verses, them bars are crazy. Let me come with it. And the gender, if it entered, it quickly leaves, because at that point it's about
Exactly.
And I've had these joking conversations with friends of mine who are lyricists, and they're like, "Yo, I don't even care what gender I'm getting it at as. Like I'm about to go in lyrically because they understand that there is a valid sense of I'm there because of what I do, not necessarily just who I am. Yeah, who I am is I come with all of that every day, but what I do is extremely present and noticeable. And I don't say that with the sense of cockiness. I say that with the sense of confidence and putting in years of work, and it shows at the end of the day. So that goes out the window. At least my experience in a cipher, it may come in for a moment, but once them bars, if it's serious, that energy in a cipher is so real that you lose sight of people. Don't become, they're not gender anymore. It's just words, it's cadence, it's flow, it's energy, it's attitude. You morph in a cipher, you morph into one collective unit. It's not gender, it's just energy. Is very, very different from playing a song, being on stage, watching someone,
It's a,
perform.
it's akin
It's
to
different.
jamming, to people with instruments jamming and just letting it
Correct.
go. A
Correct.
jazz band jamming together.
Correct.
There's a whole other
Correct.
spirit that's taking hold there, and we're
Exactly.
just
It's a spirit.
microphones. Yeah, yeah.
Correct. It's no longer, oh, he's playing the drums, she's playing the sax, he's playing the flute. It's just sound. It's an orchestration of everything collective together, and it's not isolated things or people. It's one individual cosmo. You know what I'm saying? It becomes gelled. And so I think the cipher is probably one of the spaces where you can let go of all of that. You elevate into a different space through your love for hip hop, through your connection to spirit, through what you do, and identity goes out the window. It becomes one unit. It's very different.
I love that out there, and I loved the conversation that you got in with about just the the not the balance or imbalance, but just the difference in roles of a male MC, female MC trying to freaking go at this industry. Yo, I understood when you were saying it. I could go to the studio and tell my wife, "Yo, take care of the kid," right?
Yeah, yeah,
Supporting them, and right.
yeah.
On the flip side,
Mm-hmm,
I try to put myself in that position, and if the lady's like,
mm-hmm.
"Yo, I'm working on my craft. I need you to watch them and stuff," I'm like, would a
Yeah.
guy be there like, "Go ahead, I'll hold it down," and be there like, "No, yo, you
Some
got."
may,
Yeah, but when you
mhm.
were saying, "Yo, you got to be ready to put your shit on hold for 10," and it's
Happens.
yeah, for me, I'm here like it's heartbreaking, and I thought the same thing because you made a great point. How many women, how many female artists, not only musicians but poets, actresses, painters, would be on display and out there? It wasn't for that time that they had, because they
Yeah,
are the matriarchs of a family.
absolutely. It's a real thing. It's a real thing.
I
Yeah.
I think it's important for us as a hip hop nation, as a hip hop community, when we're uh, loving our queens and our female contributors' music, that we also see all the aspects of it and see,
Hmm.
yo, there's a lot more that goes into it, man. And
Absolutely.
when you say, yo, that new Rhapsody album was fantastic, right? Think, yo, it's like Fonte said, if only you knew what it cost me to freaking make it, right? The
Absolutely.
time we put in, and the sacrifice we put in to
And that's outside of rhyming. I think that once you add the element of emceeing, that's a whole different thing. Whether you're a career woman, balancing and juggling that, or even just in a home, any man who really understands the multitude of roles that a woman plays in the household, you holding down your man, you holding down the kid, you holding down cleanly domestic stuff. You're doing multiple roles there. It's not one dimensional, and sometimes you may not even have time. Forget crafts and things that you love, you may not have a moment for yourself. And so once you have that self moment, now that self moment is Oh, studio. Oh, write rhymes. Oh, you know what I mean? Oh, let me go back to school. Let me study. So we play so many roles separate from before we even start to think about um, something that is for self. And that's by nature. Use the proper word, matriarch, and because that encompasses so many things. It's different. Yeah, it's real, very real.
Off to you, honestly, dope MC stands their own, man. Because of that, you've been tagged for such things as the the greatest, for me, in my opinion, the greatest hip hop opera of all time, pinnacle of hip hop music. Prince Paul's a prince among. How did you get that call? How did you get the
I mean,
invite to be on the album?
it was through Breeze, it was through Breeze. Shout out to Prince Paul. It was an amazing opportunity for him. He has his own story on how he got the call, which is a unique story. I'll let him tell that one day, when he come on. But basically, once he got that call, I was able to see him, again, privy to seeing him writing. I remember him recording Pain. Was one of my favorite things. He literally was like on the floor, like he got shot, because in that song he does. And so, I mean, for me, that elevated my take on just lyricism and artistry, by seeing him do that, and it wasn't just him being silly, it was him embodying the character. It was him like taking on what actually happened, and how that would look and feel and sound. And I just was like, whoa, that is a whole nother level of what you can do here. It added elements of acting and theater, which is what Prince Among Thieves was about, telling a story in a real sequential way, And so
So,
I
so,
just happened to be in the right place, I think, at the right time with the right skills. And Prince Paul gave me a chance.
so was it that were you in the studio when they were recording it, or how did it work? Did Paul give them the beats with the idea around it and say write to this, and was
I
that just one of
mean,
the scenes, or?
no, I think from what I recall, I want to say there was even like just kind of this. I want to say it was almost like the screenplay of like what it was, so he knew what the whole narrative was. I believe I remember seeing like an actual book in like Breeze's kitchen, and this is some time ago. But I believe he was kind of going through, and again, he could correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe there was just the storyline of what it was, and then he was writing according to the actual narrative, and making sure that the songs corresponded with what that narrative was. And so, as far as being in the studio, there were times, yeah, I went to see him in the studio record. And then there were times I had to record too, because I was on the project. So I was there for that as well in different instances. But overall, it was just an amazing experience to be aligned with someone like Prince Paul of that magnitude. And again, shout out to Breeze, because, Shy, who was, one of the the other main
Character, yeah.
character, you know, I'm a fan as well. I'm a fan of hip hop. I'm a fan of, Prince Paul. I'm a fan of so many people that were on the project. De La, Everlast, Kane, Chub Rock. I mean, it was just filled with just so many people, Exhibit, Sadat, you know, to be aligned with something like that is just,
and,
it,
and
it
early
was,
and
and it
early in
still
your
is.
career being
Yep,
underground artists, right?
yep,
Supposedly underground artists and artists, um, not signed to a label really, and stuff. Just
right.
for you guys to get fantastic, man. And I think the hard work that you guys have put into it has always put you in the position you guys
Yeah,
end up.
I appreciate that. Yeah, I was gonna say that. I think that that's a testament to Breeze, and shout out to Paul for, understanding just how talented he was and is as an artist, and respecting that someone of that magnitude, to be able to see that, the artistry in others and reach out. I mean, what more can you ask for? It's super honorable. Yeah.
Can you before we move on, because I do Uh,
Mhm.
how did you guys think up and form Indelible MC?
That's a really good question. I want to say too, very similarly, I think Breeze had quite a few of those relationships already established. And so oftentimes I was just blessed by association, being in the right place, the right time, being ready. I was there, it was already at that point. I was coming to the shows, I was doing what I was doing. And I think it was a natural, like organic way of how that kind of came together. So much so that I don't remember the specifics. I just know that that was fam. We were all having shows similarly together as far as Co-Flow. Shout out to Co-Flow, shout out to J Treds. I mean, we were in the same place, synonymous, doing shows. And I think it might have just happened organically. I don't remember if there was a specific, like, okay, we're going to do this indelible joint together. And if so, again, that might be more of a Breeze question, because those were more, you got to understand too, those shows were like Juggaknots, Company Flow, and I was emerging and aligning myself with Juggaknots
Word.
at the time. So those relationships were kind of already present. And I was like, oh, I can rhyme too. Let me get on this. You know what I mean? And they were like, word, you can. I get on this joint. And so a lot of that was already in the works just because of where people were within their own crafts, within their own groups. It was just the time. It was just the time of what was going on, the New Eurekan, the Tramps, the Wetlands, the SOBs. It was just what was happening. And I think it kind of more organically came together than anything. Yeah.
What a time to fucking be alive in hip hop, man. Thank you
Yeah.
guys for providing us with such a classic period. I played Mr. Lens, and
Ah,
yo,
oh, I love Len.
the the
That's him.
the people lost their minds. They're like, yo, this is college for me. Yo, just fantastic.
It's
What
a
what
great
what did
song.
what did you hear the first time you heard that beat and you hear the crows in the beginning? Quack,
I was like, this
quack.
guy, I was like, this guy's effing crazy.
That shit was so ill. Yo, the
This
first time I
guy's
heard that shit,
nuts.
I played that shit. They played it on college radio out here, VUM, freaking UM's radio station out here. And
Yeah,
that shit must have been like 1 in the morning and hearing the quack,
crazy.
quack. I'm like, what? And
Len
yo,
is wild.
yes.
I was like, this guy's crazy, but let's do it. He's so super talented, you know what I mean? And just who comes out with some left field stuff like that? I remember that. I remember recording that. We were in the city. I remember I finished writing in the studio, which I don't normally do, but I did do it for that particular song. Yeah.
Peep the scenario, my aerial range on freaking terrains. Oh, fantastic. Sister, thank you so much for taking a little bit of extra time with us. I could definitely not let you go without bringing attention to a wonderful fact, man. I'm a sucker for kismet, for things that work in tandem and stuff. I am enthralled by the story of your family, your mother an educator. Now, all three of you and your brothers, you, Breeze, and Fever, are all educators. Um,
Mhm.
can you tell us about what it is about you guys that you always go into the same profession and go? Are you guys gonna open up a charter school? What's
That
going
would be
on?
great.
That
That
would
would
be
be great.
fantastic. Let's
That would
speak it
be
into
great.
existence.
Absolutely. Why not? Yeah, we kind of dabble with the idea of, we have, wanting to put something together. If that happens, if and when, that would be amazing. But for now, yeah, we've all been in education for years. For years, I would say easily for myself, on and off for 20 years. Breeze, same. Kev, aka Fever, aka Slim, same. Um, yeah, I mean, it's wild. How does that happen? All MCs, all educators. And so when we talk about hip hop and education, this is not something that we talk about from an abstract or, distant perspective. We're in the classes, we've been in there. I've taught pre-K through college. I've taught on all levels. Shout out to Next Level. organization, an exchange program.
You
I've
taught
taught,
overseas, no?
yeah, I taught emceeing in Peru.
Oof.
We're actually about to go out again in a moment, in a couple of weeks, um, to push in. So yeah.
Just I don't mean to interrupt you, but how does that work, man? Form your audience,
Hmm.
people that are watching. Um, First of all, I have to commend you guys. And since the days that I found out that Hakeem Green was a professor,
Yeah,
back in the Madism days, back when
yeah,
Channel
yeah,
Live was first started, there were
yeah,
teachers back then. Since I heard
sure.
about that, Sadat X being, I'm here like,
Yeah,
yo,
Sadat is an educator as well.
yeah,
Yeah,
Wordsworth, John Robinson,
Wordsworth,
freaking,
they are. Yep.
Jr.
Jay
Period. I
Rawls.
mean J. Rawls, right? Um,
Yeah,
and who better to teach words to kids, literature to kids, using your words and the power of words to kids. But in a way, I loved the interview I saw with you, where you explaining, it wasn't the one, it was one from years ago, explaining
okay.
to that that's your biggest audience. Yeah, that's your hardest audience, and I could see that, because it's one thing.
They're real.
Yeah, that there it has to make an impact. Uh, from
Mhm.
teaching kids in the Bronx, in New York, right? English or art, like
Yeah.
the kids art,
Hmm.
right? Um,
Yes, I'm a visual arts teacher. Yeah.
and to going to Peru and teaching
Hmm.
emceeing to a culture with a
It was
um
interesting. Yeah.
how how do you work that
Um.
dynamic of teaching? Because there's something
Yeah.
deeper there, right? Of being able
Yeah,
to
it was. It was definitely something deeper. The program does provide translators. The program does provide translators. But what I found is when I was out there, I mean, I'm far from fluent. I've learned and taken Spanish many years, and it just won't retain properly in this brain of mine. So I know like words. I know words here and there, not so much conversation. I will say though that what ended up happening after a couple of days, it was really interesting. I had the translator there, and the translator would say certain things, and I had to also be mindful of my pace so that they were able to communicate and convey. And then when you're talking about rhyming, you're not just talking about words, you're talking about cadence, you're talking about flow. So it's not like they're going to translate it in the same way, um, in that way, as far as flow and whatnot. But I realized something was happening, that as I was there for a little while, I would understand what they were saying. It was very interesting. I would understand what they were saying, the students, the participants, because of body language, because of, it was a variety of things when you talk about communication. And there are things that I'm definitely still working on as a communicator myself, but I have taught communications as well at Monroe. I teach at Monroe College too. And so there was a weird energy where they were understanding some of the stuff that I was saying, although it was in a different language. And I was understanding and grasping what they were saying, to the point that sometimes I didn't need the translator, or I was like, oh, they're saying this, right? And she was like, yeah, like, how did you know that? And I think it speaks to the power of hip hop. It speaks to the power of music. It speaks to the power of love, of just understanding something in a way that you can't necessarily articulate with words, but you understand it through meaning, through context, through emotion, through intention. And so a lot of the things that I was intending or meaning and trying to get them to feel and understand, they just understood because of those other aspects, not necessarily because of the language barrier, and they just got it. I also taught a lot of things not using words, like I was teaching them timing with like bars, using a jump rope.
okay.
And so I was using a jump rope to get them to understand like timing, and getting them to understand the idea of saying a certain amount of words within that space of like
Why do I picture Breeze and Kev I with a jump rope, and you're jumping on top of broken glass, reciting your rhymes and stuff? That's how they're training you at 10 and shit.
The torture. The
rah.
torture chamber was different with I did go through something, but it was a different lesson. Kev, I remember Slim was like, you got to be able to spit your verse as fast as you possibly can. And so he would speed things up on the record, and play it like a fast speed. And he was like, yeah, that was one of the torture chambers, was speed with my brothers. And then with Kev specifically. And then the other one was, you got to be able to rhyme over a beat that wasn't an instrumental. So I used to rhyme over beats that had the words so that you didn't get tripped up. It's kind of like being, and I'm not an athlete, but kind of like being on the court and having dudes talk junk, and you can't allow that to distract you from your game. And so similar concept. It was like, you got to be able to spit your verse over a beat where they're rhyming, but you got to stay on task with what your agenda is. So those are probably the two torture chambers, which were great ones, in addition to just being dope and authentic and sharp. But those were two like drills that I would definitely do and kind of challenge myself with. So yeah, similarly, I just had them do stuff that seemed a little bit off and more unorthodox, but they got it. And there was so much talent out there and passion out there. And shout out to More Auntie, who's from Peru, another female artist, and she's a beast. I knew it the moment that I saw it. Super talented. So there's love and talent and passion everywhere, with all over the damn place, in all the countries. And that's humbling. That's a humbling part of seeing it up front like that.
I hate to cut you. The dopest.
No,
one
fine.
of the dope stories I heard you say, other people at home autographing somebody's arm.
Oh yeah, that was in Italy. Yeah, we were on stage, and Breeze and myself and Slim, and they were hyped, and they were like, they knew lyrics. And again, as you talk about language, there were a lot of people who were not speaking fluent, speaking English. It was like speaking Italian out there. It's quite a few. And Breeze was on stage, and they were like, yo, can you sign my arm? And I'm like, yo, Breeze, they talk about signing bodies out here. They doing bodies out here. So, which was cool. He signed it. I signed it. You know what I'm saying? It was a very interesting experience. Again, I think that there's such a love and a passionate appreciation for hip hop and other cultures, just understanding the reverence that it comes here. And so there's, from here, but then there's such an expansion. It's like taking a recipe and making it your own. Everybody love food, everybody love to eat. So it's like you take it and then you really make it your own. It's something special about understanding. I think that happens in other countries because there's such a sense of retaining culture and tradition there, respective of their cultures. So when it comes to hip hop, there's an understanding that it is a culture.
And
so it's a culture and it should be respected. Exactly. Whereas, not to say, but it's the truth. Sometimes in the States, we can take things for granted because of accessibility, because of a loss sometimes of culture, because we're so merged and melted. And so in these other respective countries, there's always a maintenance and a sense of reverence and respect for culture, their own, and then just the idea of what culture and tradition means. And so I think it resonates different there. Yeah.
Can you tell the people, you alluded to it earlier about a meeting, but you are heavily involved with the Universal Hip Hop Museum.
Yeah.
You're involved in education program.
Yeah, so again, shout out again to Martha Diaz, shout out to Rocky, shout out to Universal Hip Hop Museum, and shout out to the Hip Hop Education Center. So my relationship with Monroe, I taught some English classes there. I've also taught a hip hop class there and a visual arts class, an art appreciation class. And so the semester that I taught this hip hop class, within the syllabus, there's a requirement to connect with the Universal Hip Hop Museum. And so within the curriculum. And so I reached out to Martha Diaz in light of that. And we fostered this relationship because of the students and the semester and the agenda. So they have a timeline. and at the Universal Hip Hop Museum. And so I gave my students the assignment to do some research on hip hop and the origins of hip hop using their timeline.
Okay.
And then they had to create, I gave them an assignment, a midterm assignment to create their own timeline. And then I kind of created the assignment based on the inspiration of the museum's timeline. So they were creating their own relational timeline. And they did a really dope job. You know, one student had, her father had passed away when she was only a couple months old. And so she, in order to connect to him, she would ask stories to the family about who he was. And he was such a hip hop head that she learned about hip hop. She became a huge Biggie fan, Pac fan, just through her relationship with her dad. So hip hop became like,
this is what your pops used to listen
bridge.
to.
Right.
Wow.
Exactly. And so she started researching this and looking at old pictures of him and like rugbies and Tims. And so there became a whole sense of connection through her research into who he was as a hip hop head. And it in turn established a bond with her with hip hop as well. And so her timeline was like a homage to her dad who had passed away and his relationship with hip hop over the years. So the timelines came back in so many different interesting ways. One guy talked about how he was scared to talk to girls. He's originally from Africa, and then he came because of language barriers. He would use hip hop as his way to like kick game and to like kick it to the girls and talk. You know what I'm saying? So that was something that kind of broke him out of a different social sphere where he was able to like feel confident and comfortable through music and through hip hop by having conversation with something that both him and this potential girl or the girls he was interested in could relate to. So that became his confidence, that became his speech, that became the commonality. So that timeline assignment really created a relationship with me and with Martha and myself, and then therefore the Universal Hip Hop Museum. And I started building curriculum with Martha in light of that and working like on the educational committee sector. And we're still collaborating. We just did a workshop this week with students from some were from New York, some were from Cali, you know, and it was just beautiful. They're doing like a 5-week intensive summer institute in connection to hip hop and music and the music business. And so they'll be creating a portfolio through that. And again, shout out to Paradise and Rich Nice, Pete Nice, who were on the calls, and Sha Rock, who came through yesterday and met with them and spoke, you know. So the museum is really about archiving and documenting this culture that we have and making sure that it's preserved in many different ways and it being showcased like an actual museum. And so it's in its developmental stages, but in the meantime, you know, there are exhibits that are being done in the Bronx currently, and then there's the educational piece. So that's pretty much what that relationship is about. It's like building curriculum in light of that, as with the Hip Hop Education Center that is Martha's organization. Yeah.
Do they have a website or something that the viewers could check into?
Yeah, they can. Yep. So they can go. Their IG is UHHM. If you just go to Instagram and you go to UHHM, they'll find the Universal Hip Hop Museum that way.
Shorty, yep. do me a favor, Shorty. Put it up there at UHHM. Put it up there on the or pop up the link there for everybody to go follow real quick. I want to make sure we support them.
Let me see if I can.
No, not you, Queen. My bad. Shorty is my executive producer from home. He goes ahead and anything I tell him to throw on the screen,
okay,
he'll throw it up.
I was like, we getting real comfy on this.
No, so sorry. Like, at first he doesn't introduce me. Now it's Shorty.
Word. I was like, wait a second. The sticker came out.
You've already told me about how your brothers stick up for you. I'm trying to get Breeze on the show in the future.
That's funny. But yeah, Universal Hip Hop Museum, and then so you can go to them, UHHM Museum, and then you can also just go to their website. I think if you type in the same in Google, it'll pop up. And also, again, shout out Hip Hop Education Center, which is also, you know, just doing so many amazing things. Yeah.
What encouragement can you give us 40-year-olds who are entrenched in this culture, right? We
Yeah,
grew up with it, and we've lived this, and it was passed on to us from elders, and about the responsibility that we have to start taking of not just looking for the limelight, but also being in position where we're passing that torch on, because
sure.
it's definitely a responsibility that comes into that. And I'd like to wrap it up with the twofold question. You're also a
Okay.
mother of a teenager who, what, in
Mhm.
her junior senior year of high school.
Yeah, she'll be going into her junior year. Absolutely.
So that's
She rhymes.
crazy. Yeah, yo, freaking the high school years is crazy, man. Um,
Mhm.
what is it like as MC who tries to teach her audience through her words and her writing, but
Mhm.
then a mother who needs to teach this other human being at had a I'm in that same position as
It's
an
a good
MC,
question.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Who's there spitting all this knowledge, dropping all this science, but sometimes what I tell my kids is a lot different than what I'm putting down on paper, because I need my kids to be practical, right? That's the constant mission I'm
Yeah,
always in. So
yeah.
I would like to pose that question to you.
That's a great question. And what resonated with me is you said, and how you tell your child what they need to hear. As an educator, I tell my students what they need to hear. There's no difference for me. I talk to my kids the way that I would talk my kids at work, my students, the way I would talk to my child. I don't. I'm authentic everywhere. I try to be. There are times when, of course, you have to be a little bit mindful of what you say and how you say it. However, my message is never inauthentic. It's always honest. And I think that that is one of the major parts of how you can connect and reach your students, as well as reach your child or your children. And to be honest, if you're not being honest with yourself, there's moments I have to check myself for authenticity. Is it coming from an authentic place or is it coming from something else? And we're imperfect in that. Sometimes it is going to be spot on, and then sometimes you're going to have to reflect, and that's why assessment is a part of education. Self-assessment, assessment as a teacher, informal assessments for your students. It helps you to gauge and learn, and that's with your children as well. I have to take moments where I have to step back and then go and have a conversation again. Was that well received? Did I come at it a little bit too raw? Did I not come at it enough? And so I think it's a constant dance, but I would say that my approach is not really that different. And then I hear your point about on paper. Yeah, I still do my paperwork and I document and I make sure that I, cross my T's and dot my I's because I'm professional, but I'm also passionate and I also try to come from a place with love always. And again, sometimes we fall short, but my students, they'll tell you like they love me because I come to them with a sense of love and authenticity. And that's not always easy as a parent or as an educator, especially in a classroom where you have multiple children, and you realize that we're dealing with children who don't get a lot of attention and love and time that they need. So it can become a challenge in the classroom, but I wouldn't say that it's ever any real different. Sometimes my child has to say to me, Mommy, when you say kids, I'm your kid.
I mean,
Cause I will refer to them like that. I'll say, oh, my kids at work. And she's like, nah, you got me. I'm your child, so she has to check me sometimes, but it's because my thinking is still in the vein of these are extensions of me. And I've anywhere that I've worked, for the most part, it's been children who look like me. I've worked in the Bronx. I've worked out, in Mount Vernon. I've worked at a group home upstate. I've worked in Chicago, even when I was in Peru. It's brown people one way or another, and so they feel like extensions of me. They
raising the
feel like my
community.
children. Yeah, absolutely. Either way. So I would say that that's probably one of the winning things, and hip hop is something that I try to infuse as much as possible. But I don't even when it's not specifically in a lesson plan, it's in my wording. So I'm hip hop. This is who I am. It's my culture. So even if the lesson is not specifically directed with a hip hop concept or theme in mind, I'm still coming at it with a hip hop mindset, with a hip hop approach, my lyricism. I'm very quick. My kids are always like, yo, you real quick with what you say. And some of them know I rhyme, some of them don't. And the ones who don't, they speculate and they're like, you do something else, because they're always so surprised at how quick I come back with, the lyrics. Like, I'm professional, but I'm also like, yo, fall back where you go and be
It's
respectful.
because you
Line up.
glow, yo.
Yeah.
Because you glow. I'm
So
telling you, you glow, yo. I'm telling you.
appreciate that. But that's just that inner knowing that there's something authentic to give. That's that love and passion for something in a real way. And I feel like, as you mentioned, 40s, the advice that I would give back to that question, I think you're doing it, having podcasts, having these live shows, having these conversations that keeps the conversation about culture, responsibility, love, passion present. That's it right there. This is where, it's beyond us being kids and just loving it. The music as music is understanding that it is a culture and a lifestyle. It's something that we pass on to our children, to our students, to our friends, to our peers. And it just keeps the culture active and evolving.
You're working on film project. I forgot
The
the
process
process
session.
sessions.
Yeah, I haven't had a moment to get back to it, but I said it like a day or two ago that I really want to do another couple of sessions. It's
Kismet.
just so much going on, but I did do two, and shout out to LaKayla Brown, an amazing, phenomenal visual artist, also an educator, also a love of the culture. She's just fantastic, a sculptor, and if you're not familiar with her work, definitely check it out. There's a fusion for sure, and a lot of her work with hip hop pieces, what intrigued me. And then I did one with Breeze. I wanted to interview my brother, which was really dope. And he had so much amazing stuff to share and say. But it's just about inquiring into the process of the minds and the application of artists, how they think, how they come to produce what they do. And I'm intrigued by that, because you'll find that there's similarities and then there's differences. But I've always thought documentaries were dope because you get an intimate view into the mind of the creator, which normally we just see the end product. We see what they produce, but we don't necessarily see their inspiration or their process and how they come to develop things. And that's very inspiring and interesting to me. So I definitely plan on doing more sessions. It's just the plate is full, the juggle is real, but I'm gonna get back to it. Hopefully within the next couple of months, I'll be able to do another episode. I definitely plan on getting back to
Look
that.
forward to it. Where can they find the Breeze interview?
So if you just go to YouTube and you type in the process sessions,
Process sessions.
yep, and it'll pop up. There's so many things that are connected to the word process, but if you type in the process sessions, it'll pop up. Absolutely. And you'll see those two interviews, and then you can check it out. People really had so much positive feedback on regarding Breeze. For anyone who's like straight hip hop and into lyricism, he really dissects and gets into his approach to lyricism. He even gives some kind of cheat codes on things that he does, which is really cool. Ways that he helps to kind of organize thought and develop, his own sense of working and writing, which is so beautiful. Like, imagine having that for James Baldwin and being able to be like, yo, how do you go about developing, your craft and your writing? So it's a beautiful thing.
I definitely want to check that one out. I know I got some boys that are Breeze fanatics in the right now.
Oh
That
yeah,
are
they tell
probably
them to go check.
they're saving it right now. They're like, tomorrow I'm watching this.
Yeah, it's
sis-
worth it.
Sister, what are you currently working on? What can we expect coming from Herawin, and can we
Mhm.
support you in?
Absolutely. So right now I'm working on another album, another solo. I'm very excited about it. It's had its ebb and flow, some dips and dives because of life, you know. But I'm back in the studio. I'm back working. I'm back writing, and the goal is to have it released this fall. Sometime this fall. So we're not far from it. Shout out! There's a lot of collaborations on there. There's Breeze Brewing. Shout out to Neff Beats production wise. Shout out to Silverback. Shout out to Key Turner. Shout out to B Money production wise. Shout out to Pretty Bully, Illa G, Fever More Fire. Yo, there's so much happening.
Pretty
Shout out to
Bully is
Shelton.
nasty, yo.
Oh,
We
she's
just got
amazing.
turned on to Pretty Bully a couple weeks
Oh,
ago.
she's a
Stupid.
beast.
Oh,
She's a beast. You shout out to Buffalo. She's in Buffalo and she just put out a project herself, Duffel Bag.
Duffel Bag Bully, yeah, hell yeah.
Yeah, she's amazing. So talented and just a great person as well. Um, let's see. Oh my gosh! Shout out to Havoc. Havoc has
Oh,
done
get
a
out of
track
here.
on this project. Yeah, I'm so humbled by that. Um, Shout out the most recent to Poison Pen, who's featured on the joint that I just recently worked on, and Johnny Slash. Shout out to MP. Who else do I have to shout out on this? Shout out to my Chicago family. Anger, the first track that was actually released, Solitaire produced. So I couldn't help but have all of these people on there because I heard them. As I was working on stuff, I was like, oh, I could hear them on this. I could hear this person on that. Shout out to Elazy. So there's people who, you know, some of y'all may recognize the names and then some of y'all may not, but they're all people who should be acknowledged because they're all incredibly dope between the production and the lyricism. So um, I'm super excited, and yeah, there's a lot happening, and I think I hope, but I do think people are going to be really pleased. The feedback has been really positive so far with just little snippets I've been throwing out there, so
Yeah,
it's going to be dope.
the little clip of the verse that you dropped on that.
Thank you.
We're excited. I put up the poster that we were in my audience were crazy. Like, what, you got Herawin on the show? And I actually wrote you. I think it was right after Breeze had dropped the last album.
Yeah, so we're talking about a year.
A
Yeah,
year ago, yeah, it was
hindsight. Yeah.
mid COVID, and I had found out that you were taking care of administration for him, management for him and stuff, or just
Yeah, I was helping out
yeah,
with his.
filling his inbox and stuff. I'm like, yo, you think we could get the interview and stuff? And you just recently hit me back. You're like, you still down for that interview? Like, oh, word. You're like, yeah, because I got a new album coming out. I'm like, oh, I can interview you? Dope. Because I thought it was just for Breeze, but it was so dope being able to go back and do the research and see the
Yeah, thank
interviews.
you. I can see you did it.
Oh,
Yeah,
no, sister.
that's respectful.
As a fan of the crimes bars of you as an MC, it is so much more satisfying and when these are real people that have a real
Yes,
love, not only for the culture, but for their community, for their family. But for
indeed.
me, I saw one Breeze interview and just seeing how down to earth he was. And I see that man, and when I think of the Juggaknots, and when I think of Indelibles, it's they rhyme and rocks start levitating off the floor. It's like a chi power that it's on some other shit, but just the humility of it, and that then you guys pick a profession like teaching, and his song that he's got on his album about teaching
Taking notes.
and the taking notes, and the kids freaking finds all the
He's so phenomenal.
yo. I'm here like, bro, this is a man writes who writes American classics, but he's there feeling the humility of kids throwing away his lesson, and it's that, and to take on that profession shows me that you guys are. That's somebody who I want to support with anything that you guys drop. I'm there to purchase. That's what I want to pass on to my audience. So, sister, please let the people at home know where to follow you, because I want to make sure to be on top of everything.
Appreciate y'all, man. Appreciate you. Appreciate the show. Thank you to the audience members who came through today. Yeah, you can go to at the Queen Herawin. It's spelled HERAWIN, like win. So at the Queen Herawin, you're gonna see me acting up, acting silly, playing, music and messing around, having a little fun. So that's the IG page. You can also find myself and Breeze and the whole Matic team on at the Juggaknots, Juggaknots, at the Juggaknots. So again, shout out to the whole team, Digio, Ray Fogues, Carter P, Wiz, just the whole team at Matic. Of course, my brothers, Juggaknots, Breeze Brewing, and Fever. And honestly, that's the best way. I'm not great with Twitter. I'm not great with Facebook. Shout out to all the people who come through for Facebook love and I don't respond. It's my bad. IG is like the easiest platform me to access. But yeah, anything that's coming out, you're gonna know and hear about it through my IG platform. So if you just come through and check out the Queen at the Queen Herawin, you're gonna see what's popping. You're gonna hear about things and when they're dropping. And the joint that I have with Breeze will be dropping relatively soon in the next couple of weeks. And then, like I said, the project on a whole, the goal is to get that out for the fall. So, and Breeze is also working on some stuff. So he got something coming pretty soon too, some new music as well.
I hope that you'll add us to your mailing list and say any drop here.
Oh, I got you. Yeah, I got you. Most def.
We're here with Queen Herawin, man. Thank you so very much for blessing us with your time. Anytime that you come down to Miami to vacation, and if you podcast to get on, if you want to see if there's some talking, we throw something.
I would love that. Yeah.
Blessing to have you down. Queen, is it? Nope. Let's just wrap it up. If you could do me the favor, give them a drop. Let them know who you are. Let them know
you know who it is. It's Queen Herawin of the Juggaknots on Site Life Radio, baby. Getting it in. WVCC every time. Booty. Life.
Bomb. Queen, thank you so very much, sister. Site Life Radio. What could I play for the people at home? What would you like? I think I got one from your solo album. What's called something a G.
Oh, you could play Return of the G. Shout out to my brother, as a matter of fact, the producer for literally half that album of Metamorphosis, Senkyu, passed away last year. So we're going to rock out with him. Yeah, we're going to play Return of the G on respect for the man.
Respect and rest in peace, Senkyu. Return of the G, Queen Herawin. Bomb. Salute to you, sister. Peace. Be good. Bomb. Bless.
Much love.